This reading is from the first book of Sonia Nimr's ArabLit trilogy, or Thunderbird, forthcoming 2022 from University of Texas Press. It's when 13-year-old Noor, the hero of our trilogy, heads to Jerusalem with her parents' old friend, Dr. Samar. They're searching for the time gate so that they can travel back in time to the point just before the Phoenix, or the Thunderbird, last burned up, so that they can get one of the feathers needed to stop the wall between the world of the djinn and the world of the humans from tumbling down. And here they are. He went on as they climbed the stairs. Before 1967, this was called the Palestinian Museum of Antiquities, and it was also the headquarters of the Palestinian Antiquities Authority. But after the occupation, they renamed it the Rockefeller Museum for the American donor whose money contributed to building it back in '38. Naturally, that was during the British Mandate period. The building was beautiful. It had been built in a traditional Arab style with an 8-sided tower and a courtyard open to the sky. There was a rectangular pool at the center, surrounded by pots of flowers, but Noor didn't notice much of this, since misgivings had swept over her again. Deep down, she wondered if she had been too quick in accepting this task. She followed the doctor with hurried steps, as though she were trying to get ahead of her ideas. Yesterday, the doctor had given her the opportunity to walk away from all this, and she had chosen to move forward. Now fears crept back into her heart, and these fears and doubts about her mission became like interlocking iron rods that kept her locked away from any feeling of confidence. Would she find the time gate? What was it? Was it really a gate? How would she get into it? Would it hurt? What would she find on the other side? What was waiting for her over there? She was afraid, really afraid. The doctor noticed Noor's anxious expression, so he gave her hand a squeeze of encouragement. Inside the museum, they walked among the glass vaults. There, behind the glass, was the history of civilizations that had once been here. These were civilizations that had reigned and disappeared, or civilizations that had invaded and been expelled, each of them leaving behind a trail of exploits and wars, each remnant telling the story of the land that was still here. Then the doctor spoke, pulling Noor from her thoughts. This is from the main hall of Hisham Palace. It's the most beautiful part of the museum. In front of them stood a group of stucco ornaments. These included statues of people and animals, plant motifs, and exquisitely crafted geometric shapes. Look at how subtly they were made, the doctor said. They almost look as if they might speak. Noor gazed at the ornamentation without much interest, since her mind was busy with dozens of big questions. The doctor took her hand again, and they walked on. In front of them, on the ground and on the walls, were the decorative works that had been transferred in their entirety from Hisham Palace to the museum. The doctor was explaining about the statues and the ornaments, and he was so totally wrapped up in his lecture that he didn't notice Noor, whose eyes were popping out of her head as she stared straight in front of her. Noor stretched out a hand to point at the ornaments hung on the wall right in front of her, and the doctor turned. Noor felt a choking sensation. When she opened her mouth, only a rattle came out. The doctor followed her gaze, and then unthinkingly gave her hand a sharp tug. On the wall, directly opposite them, was a tree engraved in the stucco. Atop one of its branches, a bird perched with royal majesty. The two of them stood there, staring at the tree in amazement. Its details were more beautiful and realistic than they had been in the picture they'd seen in the book. Then the doctor pulled himself together. "But I don't see the mark. Is this really the same tree from the photo?" He reassured himself. Yes, this is it. We just need to look more carefully. Perhaps we will find the... But before he could finish his sentence, a voice erupted from a loudspeaker somewhere in the hall, announcing first in Hebrew, then in English, that the doors to the museum would be closing in 10 minutes, and that everyone was asked to head toward the exit. "The museum is closing," the doctor said. "We have to find the seal quickly." Guiltily, Noor reached a hand toward the bird, in spite of the sign to its right that clearly warned against touching objects in the museum. With her fingers, she followed the flow of its feathers. Finally, at the end, she felt it. "I found it! I found the seal!" Then she hesitated. And what? What do I do now? "The museum is closing soon. We'll have to come back tomorrow." Then an idea occurred to him. "Put on the ring." Noor put on the ring, but nothing happened. They were in a race against time, so the doctor said, "Press the ring against the seal. It's just an experiment, but who knows?" She set the ring over the engraving, and to her amazement, they matched perfectly. The voice came on again, announcing the museum's imminent closure. Noor's anxiety rose, and she said in a shaky voice, "Nothing happened. The time gate isn't—" Then she yelped, "What's happening? What's happening?" "What? What?" "It's pulling at me," she shouted. "It's pulling me. I'm scared." The doctor was staring at her in shock, since it seemed to him that Noor's hand was disappearing, as though something were pulling her into the decorative panel. Her arm disappeared up to her elbow, so he reached out and gripped the other. He too was shivering violently. Whatever force was pulling her back was stronger than he was. Half of her body was already gone. "Help me!" she shouted. "What?" The last thing she saw was the doctor's hands raised in terror, his face gone pale and bloodless. His eyes bulged, his mouth was open in a soundless scream, and a black cat stood beside him. Then the darkness swallowed her up. Noor felt she was swimming in a dark emptiness of nothing, no pain, no feelings, no thoughts, no fears. She felt nothing except that she was swimming in silence.